And welcome everybody. This is the simple project kind of follow up. I announced this last month with a kind of a free session, just showing you how to use the month review template album. And so for those of you that are new here and didn't watch that video, we've just come off a big project that I teach every year. I've been doing it for, I don't know, the last 10 years or whatever. But we essentially create a project in the space of a month. And so I've been trying to think of ways to simplify scrapbooking, simplify memory keeping. How do we make the process of telling stories and finding time for our art a little bit more simpler? And so I came up with this idea that if we create a double page spread every month in the year of 2024, then by the end of the year, we'll have 24 pages, which you can easily then collate, put together, and print in a photobook project or a photobook album. So part of the impetus for me was also too because I create these month review templates every year and I never use them. Partly because I do a project at the end of the year that kind of recaps my year. With my children now being gone in college and needing a little bit more inspiration, I have decided that this year I'm going to document the walks that I take every day with my dog. He's 13 this year, and I know that those years are going to be numbered. I also used to be really interested in photography, especially landscape photography. When my children were babies, we lived in Alaska, and I would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go out and take photos with my DSLR. So of course, children arrive, you get busy, things happen, and I've kind of fallen away from that. So part of this project for me has been rediscovering landscape photography, not with my DSLR, because I'm not going to drag that around on my daily walks, but I have found that there is some magic to having my phone with me when I go out on these walks and wondering what the weather's going to be like or what the landscape's going to be like on any given day. So I've created this first page. These are photos that I've just taken throughout the month of January, some stories. I'm going to today talk a little bit about just the approach to this. I suppose I haven't really finished with that. It doesn't matter what template album you use. It doesn't matter even if you use a template album. I'm using a template album because it makes it easier. All I have to do is drop my photos in, and I'm going to show you kind of with this particular template how that comes together. But basically this project welcomes anybody, whether you're a paper scrapbooker, a hybrid scrapbooker, whether you're a digital scrapbooker. If you want to use templates, if you want to use the month review templates, they're available in my store at Anna Aspinus Designs. So this is the template album that I am using. I'm just going to drop this into the chat box. But I also have so many other templates. If you have templates from other designers, feel free to use those. Everybody's welcome. I just really want this to be a community project where we support one another and we get a project done in a year. So I have a ton of different style albums, all different types. But these are the templates that I'm going to be using. I have a folder of them here. So I like to drop the previews outside so that I can see them. I'm going to make this really easy on myself. And obviously for January, I'm going to use the January templates. February, I'm going to use the February templates. I'll also link the previous video into this or into the replay of this when I post it on YouTube. To kind of give you a link of me talking through these different templates. So I've essentially started off with the January templates. There's an intro template, which I'll deal with at the end, and a last page template. This is really just to kind of give a front and a back to the photobook project. But I'm initially starting with pages 2 and 3, which are the 2 templates. And so the way I start this is to go to new. I am going to be working, these are 12 by 12 inch templates at 300 DPI. And so you want to create a layout that is double the width of the template and then the height. So double the width would be 24 and then the height would be 12. And then you want to make sure you have your resolution at 300 DPI. and then you're going to click OK. And this is going to give you your double page spread. Let's go ahead and close this out like this. I like to also add guides. So one of the things that you can do in Photoshop or Elements is go to View, and you can ensure that you have your rulers enabled. So you can see that this is checked. If I click on that again, you can see that they disappear. So I'm going to go back to my rulers because I like to have those. And then with the Move tool selected from the Tools panel, you can click into those rulers, hold down the left mouse button and drag. And then I like to bring that line into the center. So now you can imagine that this is a open page of a book. So you have the left-hand side page and the right-hand side page. I like to work in double page format because, for a number of different reasons, it feels faster when you work on 2 pages at once. It also allows you to work on 2 pages side by side. That way, when you're placing your photos and your elements, then you're able to kind of visually see how the 2 pages are coordinating and visually balancing with one another. So those are the 2 main reasons that I like to work in double page format. So I'm going to go into my first folder. When you download templates, typically they're in multiple folders, and this is because it makes it just much easier to download depending on where you live in the world, what kind of internet connection you have. We try to keep file sizes under 100 megabytes, and that just makes it just easier for everybody. So I go in and I have my page 2 and I have my page 3. I'm going to hold down that Control or Command key if you're working on a Mac to select both of those PSD files, and I'm going to drag them into my Photoshop workspace. You can also go to File, Open, like this, and you can navigate to that space as well. And then you're going to select them independently. So you're going to select your first one. This is actually page 3, so we want to select page 2. And then in your, did it with a bunch of different, let me close these down so that you can kind of see what's going on. Okay, so here's a double page spread, and here is our template. So what I'm going to do is I am going to click on the background layer and then scroll all the way up to the layers panel. If you're searching for your layers panel, you can go to Window and just make sure that that option is checked. Again, if I uncheck that, it disappears. If I check that, it reappears. So you want to select all those layers. Alternatively, you can select the first layer in the layer stack, and you can select the background. And then with that Move tool selected from the Tools panel, either in Photoshop or Photoshop Elements, you're going to click, hold down that left mouse button, drag, and then release that into position. And you can see how it kind of snaps into place. You can also use the arrow keys on your keyboard and just nudge that template into position. And then what I like to do is I like to group those layers. So I'm going to group that, and I'm going to call that the left side. Just allows you then to be able to kind of keep a track of your different layers. And then you're going to close this one out once you've done with that one. And then you can kind of reactivate that other template, and you're going to repeat that process. So click on the first layer, click on the background layer. You're going to be holding down the Shift key, by the way, when you're doing this. If you don't hold down the Shift key, then it's just going to select those layers. So select the background layer or the top layer, hold down that Shift button, and then select all of those layers, and then click, hold down that left mouse button, drag and release. And then again, you're going to just maneuver those layers into position. And if you need to use the arrow keys on your keyboard, you can do that, and then you can close this out. So you can then, what I would suggest you do is save this. So I go to File, Save As, and then navigate to wherever you want to save your layout. In this case, I got to navigate to I have a special folder that I have created for this class called the Simple Project 2024. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to save this. And I like to save this as a master, just so then I can reuse this layout at some point if I need to. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm also going to save it as the file name. So we'll go to Save As, and then I'm going to go to my layouts. and then I can say, I'm just going to call this test because I'm going to end up deleting it. I already have this file saved, but ideally you would call this January 2024, for example. So I have a master, so I can reuse this template in double page format at any time. And then I've also saved it as another file name, and this is going to be my working file. Okay. Now, the first step is to add your photos. Now, I had some questions about photos. Somebody had said in the Facebook group that they struggle taking photos. I'm by no means an expert these days. I used to be really good a long time ago, and I'm just having fun at this point. Really just kind of learning to look through life at the lens and trying to capture the colors, the light, etc. But I thought it would be fun just to go through some of the photos that I've taken. These are all the photos that I took in January. Not a ton of photos, mainly because I was sick for the first half of January and just really didn't feel like it. So part of this project for me is not just creating a double page spread every month, but it's expanding my creativity. It is incorporating more joy into my walks. It's capturing the details. It's learning something new. So you can see that some of these photos have worked out really well. Some of them maybe not so well. Let's pick up one that didn't work out quite so great. Maybe that's not this one, for example. I was trying to capture the light, really not great. The snow, really not fantastic. Reflections, that kind of thing. So I just basically was just snapping photos of things that I thought were fun based on the just based on my walk. So you can see here that this is sort of out of focus. This is more in focus. This is out of focus. Wanted to get, there was this one. This is what I was talking about. I was trying to get this in focus. And then of course, this ended up being in focus instead. So definitely making some mistakes on this kind of journey. But I just kind of wanted to point out a few things just to keep in mind as you're taking photos. When you're taking a picture, these are just simple things that you can add into your rotation if you're trying to improve your photography, is to put your subject off center. So don't put it directly into the center of your photo. Put it to the side, put it to the top, put it to the bottom. The same with your horizons. Try to vary your horizons. You can see this one has a lot of sky and a small amount of landscape. This one has more landscape and a smaller amount of sky. It becomes less interesting when the horizon runs directly through the center of the photograph. You can also look at shadows. I like to take pictures of shadows. So you can see that I've got lots of pictures here of shadows of me. That's partly just because that's just the way, you know, it kind of happens. But I think this one is fun with Rocky and his shadow here. So shadows is another thing that you can play with. The other thing you can look at also too is the different tools that you have within your, either your phone, if you're using your phone, there's a portrait mode and there's a panorama mode, and you can focus different parts of your image by holding down the screen. So definitely kind of get to know your camera and play a little bit. Like this one here, these two were captured by using the portrait mode. It kind of gives this blurred bokeh effect. This one was captured by zooming out. There's a 0.5 setting on my phone that I was able to employ with that, and just take lots of pictures because you never quite know which ones you're going to use. You can see this one is not the best one. It's out of focus, but I was eventually able to get a few good ones as well. So take lots of photos. Play around. Here's another one of the shadows too, depending on how low the sun is in the sky, depends on how long your shadows are going to be. Reflections. There aren't really many cool things to reflect unless the sky is super interesting. Cloudscapes, I really enjoy taking cloudscapes and trying to capture the lighting that's reflecting off the frozen lake. So I play around with those sorts of things, and then the foliage too. The foliage changes throughout the year, and so I think it's really neat to be able to document that. So, and then selfies as well. This is one that Eric took. He was being silly, which is making me laugh. But then we got a nice one too. So take pictures of you, selfies. And like I said, light too can be fun. The pictures don't always turn out, but it's neat to kind of, like I said, just look through a lens and look at things differently, and the way that they show up in your camera. So just a few ideas of things that you can kind of consider as you are taking some photos. Hopefully that's helpful. So from those photos, I was able to kind of narrow these down to some of my favorites. I like this one because it has the moon in it. Just different colors, perspectives, skyscapes, that kind of thing. I was also trying to get different views and not end up with too many shadows. So, and then a couple of close-ups, a couple of full view pictures. I like the clouds in this one. So as a big fan of the weather, as you can imagine, I also like the landscapes too. And then I'm a great lover of Instagram. I love to just pop on Instagram for 20 minutes and have a break and just consume the inspiration on there. I love words. And of course, this was kind of fun because we had that really cold snap. For those of you that were in the United States, we had a couple of days where I didn't go outside for 3 days, which is really, really rare. But I thought that this was fun. She believed she could, but it was -41 outside, so she didn't. So I snapshotted that and thought, maybe I'll clip it to a frame or I'll do something with it. So let's go and see. This is the actual template that I am using here. I'm not going to use the calendar dates. So I went ahead and I turned those off. You can use them if you want to. There's a brush set that comes with this template collection where you can strike through the dates, you can circle the dates, you can highlight them, all kinds of fun things. You could also just turn off the calendar and maybe put some elements in this space. But if you turn off all of these layers, you will actually find that there's a couple of layers underneath that you can turn on, and you can turn it into a frame. So I decided that was going to be my approach, that I was going to use that extra space for a frame, because I really only want to have the date on this side. There's no need for me to have a date. Now, had I decided to do a topic where I was going to maybe bring together a smattering of different photos from my month, then maybe I would have put dates in there to correlate with those photos, or if we went on a trip that I was documenting during a certain time. But really, these photos are just kind of floating photos from throughout the month. So once I've kind of got my template situated, I've decided kind of which photos I want to use. Then it's a matter of kind of just deciding which ones I want to put in what spot. It's super rare to get a picture of Eric and me together, let alone just me and him for that matter. We're just not very good at taking pictures of ourselves. So I decided I was going to put this one over here. And so I'm kind of doing this just naturally because I just have been doing this for so long. But what I like to do is select the Move tool from the Tools panel, select the Auto Select option at the top of your screen in Photoshop. It's at the bottom in Photoshop Elements, and then click on that mask. And that's going to directly correlate to that layer in the Layers panel. And then you're going to click, hold down that left mouse button, drag, and then release the left mouse button to position that photo over the mask. You might want to resize it just a little bit. I don't recommend you enlarge your photos too much because it's going to stretch them and it's going to make the print quality not as good. Then you're going to go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask. And so this is the great thing about the templates, is it allows you to basically know where to put your photos. So wherever there is a mask, you're going to clip a photo. So it just takes a lot of the design work out of the equation. It makes the process a lot more simple. And so you can see I can nudge this if I want to have more of those houses in the background there I can do that. And then on this side, do the same thing, close this out, click on the mask here, and then you can go and get your secondary photo. So with these photos, because they're JPEG, in Photoshop, you can drag them directly onto your canvas. I've had less success with this in Photoshop Elements. Usually you have to kind of go File, Open, but that just could be me. I'm going to go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask, and as you can see, that then clips onto there. And then you're going to do the same thing with the other photos. You're just going to grab them, bring them in after selecting the mask, resize them to fit over the mask, and then go Layer, Create Clipping Mask. Again, click on the mask, go ahead and grab another photo here. I'm just randomly placing them. Go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask. Now, if I wanted to duplicate this layer, this photo, then I could go over to my Layers panel. Here's the photo, clip to the mask. I can drag this photo to the new layer icon, and that's going to duplicate it. And then that means then I can drag that down to the frame that's below it, which is this one here. You can see because of this bounding box. If you don't see the bounding box, click the Show Transform Controls or the bounding box option in Photoshop Elements, and then go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask. So you can kind of have a photo go over multiple frames if you want to as well. So you're going to go through and you're going to add photos until you filled all the frames. And then you might want to kind of reassess the placement of the photos once you've got them into place. I'm going to go ahead and maybe I should save these. I'm going to save them in here. Just for now, just in case I need to come back to them. I'm going to close this out just to kind of save some time so that you're not watching me kind of clip all of them on there. You can see that this was the situation that I found myself in, having added all of my frames. So I ended up moving some of the photos around. Obviously, the portrait photos are going to do best in the portrait frames. There aren't any landscape photos in here. But I like to also kind of distribute things. So instead of having these two close-ups right next to one another, then I have them on opposing pages. The same with these shadows. I've got this shadow here and there's another shadow here coming out. And so I have those on opposing pages. I've got this yellow here, and there is kind of yellow down here, but I try to distribute the colors as well. So this is, again, the benefit of having those photos in double page format. Just going to go ahead and just, there's a couple of comments here. Sonia says, if you have an iPhone, you can tap on the screen where you want the camera to focus. That is correct. And then Laurie says, sometimes when the pics don't turn out, they look nice, a little blurred background or in a small empty frame. I agree. You can also crop a photo too. So you can kind of crop out the parts. You can also use the AI tools as well that are now in Photoshop to remove some of those areas. So lots of different options there. Laurie also says in PSE you can drag to your workspace. They just don't go right into your open file. It's easy just to drag into an open file. So what Laurie means by that is that you can take a photo and you can drag it into your workspace. And then with the move tool, you can then drag it directly onto your canvas. So thanks for clarifying that. Laurie's our resident Photoshop Elements guru. She knows everything, I think, in Photoshop Elements. So once you have your photos in place, then you're going to edit your photos. So that's usually the next thing that I like to do here. Taking a few minutes to open them up here. I should probably have left that other one open so you can kind of see the comparison here. So editing the photos just gives them just a little bit of a bump. If I go ahead and I just put these side by side, you can see just how I haven't really changed the photo. I've just made them pop a little bit. And I do this by selecting the photo again with the move tool selected and the auto select option checked. I can click on any of these photos in my template to access them. And then I like to go to image adjustment levels. That's enhance, adjust lighting levels if you're working in Photoshop Elements. And then I like to just bump up the highlights a little bit and the shadows just to kind of make those pop a little bit. If you want to change the midtones as well, you can do that. Another way to do this in Photoshop only is to use curves. So you can go to image adjustment curves, and this allows you to change it in a slightly different way. You can also use adjustment layers. I typically don't use adjustment layers in my scrapbooking. I have started using adjustment layers when I'm teaching, just because it gives me a bit more flexibility to show you the changes. But certainly in my personal scrapbooking, I don't use them too often. I just find that this is just as simple. So as you can see, you go through and then you just bump up the contrast a little bit, and that improves your layout design. So from here, once you have edited your photos, step 1, 2, 3 is to work on the stains, the frame, and the background. So at this point, I like to add a background paper. You don't have to add a background paper. You can totally go with whatever background is default in Photoshop, typically white. You could fill it with a color if you want to. If you want to add a background, I ended up using solid paper #1 from ArtPlay palette Enigma. So I ended up using the collection just because that's how I roll. Typically, whatever layout I'm working on, I end up using the new collection or the first new collections, mainly because they're easier for me to find in my digital art supplies. I've just created them, and so it's fun for me also to play with them. This is the ArtPlay palette Enigma collection that I'm going to be using. I'm going to pop that into the chat for you, and I'll also add it to the replay of this event. But you can see that there's a variety of different products in this collection, and they happen to kind of coordinate fairly well. There's certainly some blues in there, and it's neutral enough that they work pretty well with my photos. So keeping it simple here, I went and I added a solid paper. So going into ArtPlay palette Enigma, if you go into the papery collection, you can see that there are a number of artsy papers. Sometimes you can get these to work with your pages, but typically when I'm working on a double page spread and working with templates, I tend to go with one of the solid papers. In this case, I went with this textured paper. You can see it's got a slight kind of lace texture to it. And you're going to basically click on the background layer and then select the paper that you want to work with, and then drag it into the background. And you can see that paper is slightly darker. I decided I was going to lighten it somewhat. So I just went to image adjustment levels again, enhance adjust lighting levels in Photoshop Elements. And I just lightened that up just a little bit like that. So that becomes my foundation. I then duplicate that layer and then drag it across so that you end up having the background on both sides. Or like I said, you can just go with the solid white background. I haven't decided yet which way I'm going to go. Part of me kind of wants to go with the solid background. For this one, I think that it kind of adds to the simplicity of the design. Maybe I'll kind of go halfway through. Lucky for me, I'm not printing this project till the end of the year, so I don't have to make any decisions until the end, because I can just go through, and I plan to use the same background throughout. So maybe I just adjust the opacity. If you go to 100% and zoom in, you can still see it's got a really nice texture to it, even if you reduce the opacity. So moving on now, the next, I keep closing out the, so once you have your photos edited, the next thing I like to do is add papers to the frames so you can see on some of these frames, I've got double photos. I put this photo behind this one because I wanted to highlight the moon here. This one, I just added the same photo to the same frame, and this allowed me to highlight that nice cloud formation there. But there are some frames where you perhaps don't want to have photos, and for these, I like to either use artsy cards or I like to use the papers in the artsy papers in the ArtPlay palette. So this is where some of these papers can come in. You select a paper after you've selected the mask. That way the paper goes directly onto the mask, and then you go to layer, create clipping mask. So you're adding the papers to the frames in the same way that you added your photos. And then I like to kind of move this around just to kind of see what looks good. So I just move it around. to get a nice fit for my image. The other thing you want to be careful of too, if I zoom in here, you want to make sure that when you have a photo clipped to a mask, you can see I had two different photos here, but you want to make sure that those photo layers cover the extent of the mask. If I zoom in, I don't know if you can see it properly. I've ended up turning off a layer here. Let me just go back and turn it back on. Okay, here we are. So we've got our frames here, but can you see that this photo doesn't completely cover the mask layer? So you want to make sure that that photo does indeed cover the mask. Otherwise, you're going to end up with these weird kind of gray bits and pieces there. So I'm selecting those two layers. I'm going to layer, create clipping mask, and I've ended up with it on the wrong spot. Let me drag these back up. Okay, I think we are straight now. You know what? I'm just going to go to my history panel and let's go back. Okay, so can you see here? There's that area. So what you want to do here is to make sure that that photo fully extends over the mask. So there you go. All right, let's zoom back out. So once you've added papers to those masks, the other thing that I like to do as well is you don't have to do this, but I think it's nice and it gives your photos a little bit more cohesion. But I like to recolor these stain layers. And so to do that, you're going to do the same thing as you did with using the frames. You're going to use the Move tool to select the stain layer. And then instead of using the clipping mask function, we're going to use the fill color function. So I'm going to click on the stain. So notice how that then correlates to that stain in the layers panel. And then I'm going to go to edit fill. If you are working in Photoshop Elements, that's edit fill. And then I believe it's color. So I'm going to go to fill. I'm going to open up this box. Now it's really important here that you click on this preserve transparency box. I'm going to uncheck that now and show you why this is important. You're going to click on the color option, and this is going to activate your color picker. And then what I like to do is I like to sample a color that's in my photo, typically close to the edge. Obviously, we don't want white because otherwise it's going to disappear into the background. So I'm going to go with blue in this particular case. I also find that if you go just a little bit darker than the color you think you want, that's also helpful too. Then you're going to click OK. Now, when you don't click on that preserve transparency box and you apply that color, it's going to fill the entire layer. So this is why it's important that when you go to fill and you select your color, you click on that preserve transparency box, and then it's just going to color that stain. And then you can select the next stain and go to edit fill. And if you decide you want to change the color of that, you can just go to Image Adjustments, Hue and Saturation, or Enhance Adjust Color, Hue and Saturation. And you can change the hue of that. You can make it a little bit darker. You can make it much brighter if you want to. So you have quite a lot of flexibility with being able to recolor those. And then you go round and you recolor the same thing. You can also recolor these paper stains to coordinate with your photos to perhaps a dark brown. You can color any of the splatters or stains in this area here as well. And so essentially, once you've gone through and you have changed all of those, then you can see that this is what I ended up with. It looks like I also added the title here as well. So let's go ahead and minimize this. So you can see I've colored these kind of a brownish purple color, sorry, a bluish and a purplish kind of color to bring in the different hues of the blue skies. I've also got the browns down here. I've got this brown above here. You can also remove stains as well. So if you want to get rid of a stain, in this case, I removed the stain here to kind of customize it further. I've added paper onto this frame here and this frame here. And then instead of having the January month over here, I decided to move it over here. And then I added Heart Joy, which is a title from the Enigma collection. So if I go over to the word art, you can see that there's a bunch of different word arts that are included, and I decided to go with Heartjoy because it's just how I feel about these little kind of excursions onto the reservoir. It actually snowed the other day and I went and hiked out in the snow just because I wanted to go and take pictures of the snow. So call me crazy, but it was fun. It was super fun, and Rocky was up for it. So it was a fun time. Any questions so far? I'm just going to stop and ask. Denise said, is there an easy way to color multiple stains at the same time? You could. So typically I don't recommend this just because you're going to be adding different colors. As you can see, I've got 3 different colors around here. But what you could do is you could merge those stains together. So basically, if you go and you select one of the stains and you go to your layers panel, you can see that there are a bunch of different stains. So you find the stains and you put them all together, and then you select all of those stains by holding down that shift button, and then you go to layer merge layers. You could also put them in a group and clip a color fill layer to the group. But the easiest way is just to merge those stains and get them together. So great question. I've never had anybody ask me that before. And then Kay says, do you have an Android or an Apple phone? I have an Apple phone. I don't think it's super new, but it's fairly new. My husband's a bit of a tech gadget person. I'd be perfectly happy with the same phone. I want to say mine's a 13 or a 14. And then Laura says, are you using different word art pieces for each spread? For this particular project, most likely. I don't typically when I put projects together, but because this is a rolling project throughout the year, then I anticipate that the word art will be different. And I'm okay with that. I can't give you an answer as to why when I create a project in a month that I'm not okay with it. I mean, I guess because this is my way of thinking, is that the whole point of using the same word art throughout the project is really to provide cohesion, to make the pages look cohesive from one page to another. But the fact that my subject matter is going to be the same, pictures of our walks, so landscape photography throughout the entire project, the fact that the templates are going to be the same running throughout the project, then I'm okay with having different word art. Now, I might change my mind about that as we go through it because it might drive me crazy. But I'm trying to focus this more on being not just a simple project, but a joyful project. Not that I don't have fun doing my project template albums, but this is kind of more fun because the photos I'm taking are not of daily stories. I'm not documenting life per se. I suppose I'm documenting something that I'm currently interested in. So I guess the focus is on the photos and the subject as opposed to the word art. So that is also a really great question, Laura, because typically I would say, nope, my word art has to be the same throughout the month. Or throughout the project. But because this is a year-long project, I don't know. I mean, in 6 months, I might not want to use the same word art. I might want to just use the word art that are in the kits. But I will make sure that they are perhaps similar sorts of kind of fonts. And that's not saying that they would be the same fonts, but there would be a script font and a more kind of a serif font. So there might be some similarity in the type of word art and the style of word art. So yeah, and I am going to have to ask me that question in like 3 months or 6 months, because I'm interested what my answer is going to be. And I'm going to be thinking about that because it's not a question that I really know the answer to, but I'm anticipating that the fonts are going to be different at this point for the reasons that I have shared. Laura says, thanks, I asked because with word art cluster for January, I'm feeling obligated to use a cluster for February too. Overthinking as usual. No, I don't think so. I think if you're using templates, I think that, you know, it's a nice to have. Certainly it helps with the cohesion. But it also depends on your scrapbooking level as well, because think about it, we're all coming from different journeys. I've been doing this for 22 years. I know that we have people in here that are new to this as well. And it's just keeping the fonts the same from one page to another just helps to provide cohesion from one page to the next. But it's certainly not a requirement, not if you are skilled at adding cohesion in terms of your photo placement or your element placement. So I think that that's important to consider too. Like, you can have cohesion, maybe all of my word art will be white, and that's enough to carry that cohesion through. And I think that too, there's a fine line with having everything. I tend to be a matchy type person. Like, I want my socks to match. My husband just bought me these new socks, and they've got little color emblems on them of the logo. And I like them to match. And that's just who I am. But I think you have to be careful not to be too matchy, because then you lose the tension, and the visual interest comes in having something that's slightly different throughout your pages that kind of keeps you kind of guessing, and that could be, in this case, it would be the bright yellow. Everything's very blue, very brown, but then we've got these pops of yellow, and you're going to see when I embellish these pages how I've played up that yellow. It could be, like I said, that all of your titles are white, and that's enough. It could be that all of your backgrounds are white. So just, a few things to think about, that you have used stitching on every page. Now that's easy because I've included the stitching with the templates. So, as I have improved as a designer as well as a scrapbooker, I've also made the products better to help you with the cohesion. But great question. Really good question there. Kay also says, any special photo app on it or just the one that came with it? I'm just hitting the photo button, Kay. I did find the portrait option, which allowed me to get these really fun bokeh photos. And then, like I said, I like to, zoom in or zoom out. That can help. I prefer zooming out to zooming in, because I find that the quality of the photo decreases when I zoom in. I would much rather take the photo and then crop it in Photoshop if I want to zoom in, if that makes sense. Okay. All right. Great questions. So once you have your stains done, you've got your background and you've got your frames done, then and you add your word art. Notice I've moved both of these word art titles together. Then we move on to the next part of it, which is the embellishment. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to add in, I'm going to keep this layout open just in case we need to revisit it, which we could very well do. And so you can see I've added basically one cluster to each side. The cluster has really kind of come from the multimedia elements. So these multimedia elements, they are delivered in these different folders. You get the PSD file, you get a PNG file that includes all the elements, and then I include all the elements separately because not everybody is working in Photoshop. I also now include these previews outside, so you can quickly correlate which element is in which folder. And so I like to start off with one of these elements. So in this case, it looks like I started with 4. So if I go ahead and I drag this into my workspace like this, and then what I like to add my elements at the top of my page. So I'm going to basically go probably not where the text is, but to the top layer of my layers panel, because you want to have that selected, because when you select all of these layers, now notice these are all layered. So this allows us then to customize. I'm going to select all of those layers by selecting one layer, holding down the shift button, selecting them all, and then with the move tool, holding down that left mouse button, dragging and releasing. And so because we selected that last layer, it means that all of those layers then are going to be dropped on top of that last layer, as opposed to having maybe this bottom layer selected, dragging in those layers, and those layers being hidden beneath our blended photo. And again, with these layered files, I do recommend you select them and you go to Layer, group layers. If you're working in a newer version of Photoshop Elements, you also have that option. And then I just like to go in and I like to just name it. But that way you can kind of keep it organized. And then from here, you can kind of start moving elements around. So I like to start with this approach because it's really easy to, again, we're talking about simple here. Why make it more difficult than it needs to be? If the element already exists, then use it. So, but it doesn't mean to say that it has to be used in the form that it's in. So you can see that the key here is kind of in the way. So what I decided to do was to take those two key layers, there's a key and a key shadow layer, and let's go ahead and take the stitching too, and I drag that over on this side like this. I've left the shadow behind there. So let's go back, this time grab all of them and bring this guy over here like this. And then there's a lot of sprinkles and fun stuff in the background here. And I forget where I put these, but you know, I could start bringing this over here if I wanted to, maybe add the stars. You can rotate the stars. We'll go back and we'll see actually what I decided to do. But you can add the stars over here. You can add stars over here. This is kind of a nice cluster area, so you can kind of start building that up. And then go in and add some of the other elements. So that could mean taking some of these other elements. So you can use these PNG elements independently. They do exist there somewhere, but maybe add these over here like this, make them a little smaller. You can also go in and you can take elements from other areas. So you can see there's these paper sprinkles here. So you can either bring in those individual layers, or you can open the multimedia file into the background here, and then you want to select the confetti layers. So there's quite a number of them. Drag those in like that. So you can build your own clusters as well, which I believe is what I ended up doing by pulling in individual layers from other elements. I think I had this one in here for a while too. This fastener here. I think I had this in here for a while. You can bring this in. So you can kind of customize those elements or build your own elements. You can also go to your ArtPlay palette and you'll see you have an elements folder in there as well. And so this has some fun things in as well that you can bring in. I brought in these fun birds, added these into the background here. And then usually in the multimedia elements as well, I usually have some photo glows. I just wasn't able to find them in the actual. So you can see that there are photo glows in some of these. Let's go to this one, which is number 3. So you can see that there are these fun photo glows, and these are really neat because you can drag them over your photos. So notice I'm clicking on the check mark to allow those glows to be introduced into your canvas, and then you can move them wherever you want to move them. You can also change the blending mode by going to your layers panel, clicking on the normal tab, and then notice how that can introduce some nice light here. So that sort of balances the light that's coming in on this side. So you're going to place your elements like that. And let's go to my, this is what I ended up with here. So it looks like I did have these wooden flowers over here at one point and ended up moving them back. I added the frame from the ArtPlay palette over the photo. That adds a nice oval, and it also kind of brings in the ovals or the circle of the key. It brings in the circles of the confetti here. I guess the circles that exist in our faces and in the glasses here. I added this yellow button here to bring in some of the yellow elements. There's a small snowflake here that came in from one of the multimedia elements because there are a few snowy images. I added those snowflakes again in 3 different places. That creates a nice visual triangle here. And just kind of added until I felt like I had enough there. You'll also notice too that I added a hard light blending mode whoops, not to that. That is a, let's go ahead and turn. So you can see that this stain here was black. I've added a linear burn to that, and I've changed the color. So I've made it much lighter, so and I've also rotated this splatter and added another splatter here. So if we go back to that original one here, I think it was Stain's background. So you can see, let's go ahead and turn off some of these layers just so you can see them. So here's that stain in black. So I just recolored it to more of a beigey color and added a linear burn blending mode. And then I turned this around, just changed the position of it. And then there's another area here and ended up kind of moving those around. So you can add different splatters into the mix as well. So that was kind of the first pass at the embellishment. So let's go ahead and turn this one off. I think this is the one. So going back to, we now look at text and balance. So I've done this in kind of parts just so that you don't have to watch me put the entire layout together. So here is our elements, our layout with the elements. And then I go on and I add a few other elements into the mix, and it's mainly the yellow. So if you remember, I told you previously that most of the colors in here are blues, kind of browns, whites, but there's this yellow. I went out in the evening and the sun was just at that lowness in the sky, and with the darkness of the sky, the grass came out super yellow. And so I added the yellow button over here to bring in the yellow of the flower heads here, but I needed to balance that on this side with some more yellow. And so I did that. My favorite way to do that is to use artsy paint, artsy stains and splatters. You can see I also added this brown artsy stain here. So if you go to the store at Anna Aspinus Designs and you go to the tools category, you'll see that I have a ton of different splatters, stains. These are my favorite tools, and more splatters here. And it looks like I need to add some more artsy paint. But these are the sorts of paintbrushes that I like to use in my templates that allow me to balance the color. I'll just drop this into the chat box for you. So you have that. Let's go ahead and add that in like that. So those are the tools. Those are my favorite tools, and that's also how I simply add those elements, or how I simply balance my pages without too much stress. You can also see I added this blue stain here. And then the final part of this is to add in, let's go ahead and close this down, is to kind of reassess the design. So I call this reworking and finalizing, and adding your type, of course, too. You want to make sure that you add in your text. So I do the journaling last. You can see that I have turned off. Did I turn off? Maybe I didn't. Oh, yes, you can see I turned off. So you can turn off these text boxes. So notice I'm just clicking on them to select them. And you can go into the layers panel here, and you can turn off any of these text boxes. So if you decide that you don't need all the text that's offered, in this case, I turned off those. I'm not sure what I'm going to write. I did manage to find some stuff to write. I'm shocked that I managed to write as much as I did, but I did actually add some thoughts about the reservoir in there. You'll also see too that I added in, this kind of looked, once I turned the text off, a little naked. And so I added a paper texture over there. That creates some nice containment. And then I also added a word transfer from the word art that's available. So if you go into the word art, you can see there are some wood words. Here are the word transfers. This is the one that I added. There are these titles here, and then there's a beaded threads as well. So a couple of different options there for adding elements into the bottom here. These paper textures, this is brush 13 from ArtPlay palette Enigma. So this is one of the brushes that's included with the ArtPlay palette. So if I go to the brushes, we haven't looked at those yet. You can see that there are a bunch of different paper textures, as well as some other different elements too. There's that lace texture that I'm using as the background here. There's another paper texture here, similar, but not quite the same. I think this is the one that I've used. So I added those in. You'll notice too, I also did a switcheroo with the title. So I ended up moving the Heart Joy and adding it over to this side, and I've made it black now. So maybe I go with black title, and then I added that quote. So she believed she could, but it was -9. It wasn't -41 where I was. It was -9 outside. So she didn't. It was still too cold for little Rocky Bear and me. So we didn't go outside. So I just typed that in a text box and I put it over the sky. And I talked about the weather, of course. It's the 1st January that I remember seeing so much sunshine here in Colorado. It was 60 degrees last week. So it's been super warm at this time of year. Very strange. Makes me wonder what's coming in February. Also got the moon in there. Big fan of the moon. So yeah, that's kind of my approach here, is just to kind of reassess and look. So we've got a nice visual triangle now with the yellow. I added in a splatter in the center here. This helps to kind of bridge the 2 pages. I sorted out my journaling. You know, adjusted any photos. You can see that I did not adjust that photo here. So you want to make sure that you pull that across. I think I ended up pulling this one across too, because I think that was kind of like this. And that's how I completed my page. And then when you're done with this page and you're finally happy with it, you can go to File, Save As, and then you want to save it. I'm just going to save it out here as a test. You're going to save it as a PSD file. And then you're also, and this is purely because in December, I might want to come back and adjust the backgrounds. I might want to read through the journaling. Might want to make sure that I have everything in place. And then I'm going to go to File, Save As, and then change this. Instead of a PSD file, I'm going to save it to a JPEG file. And I'm going to go to Save. Click OK. Have it as 10. Anywhere between 8 and 10 is just fine. And now you can see I have my layout and I have my file, so that when I come back in 6 months or to a year and I want to just, you know, make some changes, then I can easily do that. If I don't save that PSD file, then I'm unable to make those changes. So that is pretty much where I'm at with my project. I got my first layout done. Let me know if you have any questions about the process. If you didn't take my AA project class this year, there's a lot more information in there about balancing pages. I'm going to be back next month, probably with another page. I don't know, I may share it in a different way, maybe just do a recording of me creating the page, but I'll definitely try and do something once a month to support this project. I'm going to be posting my layouts in the Simple Digital Scrapbooking Photo Book group page here. I'm going to add that into the chat box too, so you guys can all join and post your pages every month. It's really nice. What I found with these community projects, certainly in the class environment, is that it's accountability. It is a way to be able to look at different ways people are using the same templates. I think a lot of people are using the MonthReview templates, but it's certainly not a requirement. So it's just really neat to go through and see the same template used multiple different ways. And you can learn from different placements of photos. It's really nice. There's a nice group of people in there commenting and just being really supportive of one another. And you get some great ideas. We've got a theme for sharing your project. I've been posting some inspiring quotes. So yeah, hopefully a couple of posts a month, and we can support each other through this little project, and it will be fun. I'm certainly having fun with it. I'm having fun with the photography aspect of this project. I'm having fun with my dog walking. Of course, you know, reacquainting myself with photography. It's inspiring. It's leading me down all sorts of little rabbit holes, which is kind of really fun. So anyway, Pat says there's no join button. When you go to that page, you may have to send me an invite. I will invite you, Pat, after this particular session. Let me know if you have any other questions. Thanks, Laurie, for chiming in and helping with the Photoshop Elements aspects of it. And great questions. Shah says, are you going to use black and white photos in this project? Probably not. I might change my mind on a couple of pages. The reason being is that a big part of this particular project for me is the photography, the colors, the light, and I'm not sure because, well, first of all, because my photos are of a similar subject, I'm not going to have to worry too much about clashing colors as long as I don't wear my pink hat too often and take a selfie. Then I'm not going to have to worry about those clashing colors. And quite often we add in the black and white photos to tone a layout down. So because the color is a big part of the photography in this particular project, it's unlikely I'm going to use black and white photos. But never say never. I mean, this is a first for me, doing a project every month for a year. How I feel now in January and how I feel in June or even December could change. And I'm already this is already leading me into new kind of ways of creating an inspiration. And I'm seeing it as I'm working on the extractions class that I'm going to be teaching at the end of the month and into March, is that it's definitely inspiring me in different directions. So this is the neat thing about starting a project like this, is that you really don't know where it's going to take you, and you don't know how your inspiration and your creativity is going to evolve over a longer period of time. So this is kind of a fun experiment. Some of these questions I can't ask now, but like I said, it's going to be interesting. And I'm going to note down some of these questions and we'll revisit them in 6 months just to see where I am and kind of go from there. So I think that will be super fun. And yeah, Pam says, I feel like nature is color. And I agree with that too. Marcia says, are the birds part of the Enigma collection? Yes, they're part of the ArtPlay palette. And then Pat says, for whatever reason, Anna's page does not have a join button. It's weird because I've had 1 or 2 people say that, and everybody else has joined no problem. So I'm not sure what the issue is. I don't know if it's a browser issue. Maybe try a different browser. I'm not sure if it's just Facebook can be a little bit quirky sometimes. I will go ahead and try and add you though, or send you an invite. Definitely email me if you don't hear from me though, because it just means I forgot between now and then. And then, so most of you are able to join. Major Frank says, thank you so much for sharing. And I got lots of ideas and inspiration. And yeah, I'm happy to share it. Like I said, I just want to, I want to encourage you not to feel like you have to make a masterpiece from every page. And I think what holds a lot of people back from scrapbooking and documenting and just having fun with their photos is that sometimes the time that it can take. And so I think using templates, I think keeping it simple, which is the name of the game here, and also setting yourself a goal of 1 double page spread a month. I mean, anybody can find time for that. Now, when I'm asking you to create a page every day or a page every week, then I can understand that being a little bit more of a challenge. But I feel like this is just so doable. And what I know about doing these sorts of projects is that 1 month, you create a double page spread, another month you create another one. And by, before you know it, you're already halfway through the project. And it's super exciting to realize that just a small steps can kind of create these fabulous results. So after class, I will go and I will accept everybody who's asked to join. Like I said, I'm going to be posting not every day, but just periodically throughout the month, little things that I find inspiring. Obviously, I'll be posting my pages. I'm going to try and do a session like this every month. And if you have any questions, you know where to find me. So I will be posting this video to YouTube in the next couple of days. So you can look out and watch this again if you want to revisit this. And yeah, and hopefully I will see you in the Facebook group. If you have any other questions, then just let me know. Appreciate your support of my artistry and everything I do around here. Like I said, I'm just finding some new inspiration right now, and it's exciting, and it makes me want to share that with you guys. So have a great week. Create your double page spread if you haven't done that. Post it in the Facebook group. And if you're not on Facebook group, email it to me. I'm always happy to receive your pages by email. I know that everybody is a little bit wary of Facebook. I can relate. I don't blame you. Unfortunately, it's the best way I've found to have a whole bunch of people in one place. If we have a separate classroom for this, then people have to go to one more place. I am kind of vetting people, and I will be removing people if people join and they're not part of our tribe. If they're not into what we're into and they start posting all sorts of random inappropriate things, I will be removing them from the group. So I will be keeping an eye on the group. So, you know, if you wanted to get an account and just have an alias name just for this group, then I encourage you to do that. It's going to be a safe place. There are good people here. Most of these people I have been working with for a really long time. So you can feel safe in that respect. Anyway, have a great week, and I look forward to seeing your pages. Chat soon, everyone. Bye.